Welcome to the deep dive. You've handed us the sources for, well, one of the absolute titans of American literature, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
And we're not just here to skim the surface, are we? No book report today.
No, definitely not. Our mission here, based on what you've given us, is to really dig deeper. We want to pull out that core narrative structure, get a solid handle on the key characters, and really lock down those big thematic insights. Why does this book still matter so much?
Exactly. Think of it as the strategic overview you need. So, let's dive in. The sources immediately ground us, don't they? Specific time, specific place.
Absolutely, like critical context. We're talking the 1930s, and the setting is the fictional town of Maycomb, Alabama, deep south.
And you can't just brush past that setting. It's not just backdrop.
Oh, not at all. It's fundamental. The 1930s South means Jim Crow laws,
Yeah.
rigid segregation. It wasn't just custom, it was enforced law.
Right.
So this environment, this town, it's the crucible for the whole story. It dictates the terms of the conflict, the prejudices, the social strata,
Yeah.
everything.
And the way we experience all this intense social commentary, the sources point out, is through a very specific lens.
Yeah, the narration, it's told through the eyes of Scout Finch.
Yeah.
She's a young girl.
Which is just a brilliant choice, really.
It is. Because you get this this unfiltered view of adult hypocrisy and moral failings, but initially processed through a child's understanding or misunderstanding sometimes.
Right, she doesn't always get the nuances at first.
Exactly. It's framed as this journey, this gradual, often painful realization of how the world actually works. Moral confusion leading to, well, a loss of innocence.
And that makes the impact, the lessons, feel incredibly personal for the reader, doesn't it? You learn alongside her.
You really do. And the sources highlight how the story weaves together two main threads. They're distinct but totally interconnected.
Okay, what are those?
Well, you've got the big public drama, the trial of Tom Robinson. That's the social commentary engine.
Right, the injustice.
And then, running parallel, you have this more personal, almost mythical story. The kid's fascination and initial fear of their neighbor, Boo Radley.
Ah, Boo Radley. Yeah.
And the sources really position the novel as fulfilling both roles. It's a classic coming-of-age story, Scout and Jem growing up, and it's this incredibly powerful critique of society.
So the two plots kind of inform each other.
Precisely. The trial shows them the darkness, the prejudice baked into their town. The Boo Radley story eventually shows them unexpected kindness, goodness, protection, often where they least expect it.
So they're learning about society's failings and individual potential, sometimes in the same breath, which brings us neatly to the family at the heart of it all. The Finches.
Yes, the moral anchor. Let's start with Scout, our narrator. Sharp kid, curious.
Tomboyish, right, always asking questions.
Definitely. But she's young, so her perspective is limited initially. She misinterprets things, judges based on incomplete information. Her journey is the arc of the novel, moving from that childhood view to a more complex adult understanding.
And then there's Jem, her older brother.
Jem shares the journey, but being a bit older, the impact of what they see, especially the trial, it hits him differently, maybe harder, faster.
He seems more idealistic, maybe, so the disillusionment is more crushing for him.
I think that's a good way to put it. He really struggles with the unfairness of it all, and it definitely affects his view of his father, of the world. That loss of innocence is quite profound for Jem.
And then the man himself, Atticus Finch.
Atticus, yeah. The sources define him instantly, don't they? Respected lawyer, widowed father. But more than that.
Moral compass.
Exactly. He's this figure of quiet, unwavering integrity. Believes in the law, believes in doing what's right, even when, maybe especially when, it's unpopular or doomed to fail in the conventional sense.
And raising Scout and Jem alone in this environment, that's a huge weight.
Immense. He has to teach them how to navigate this prejudiced world, how to maintain their own sense of justice and empathy, even when the town is pushing back against everything he stands for. He's often standing alone against the community consensus.
That's a key point. Standing against the community. Let's talk more about Maycomb itself. The sources describe it as steeped in prejudice, inequality.
Oh, absolutely. It's a small town, which means everything is amplified. Everybody knows everybody's business, their family history, their perceived place in the social hierarchy.
And that hierarchy is rigid.
Extremely. You've got the established families, the poor but proud folks like the Cunninghams, the looked down upon Ewells, and then completely separate, the Black community. It's all meticulously ordered.
So when Atticus takes the Tom Robinson case,
He's not just taking a case, he's directly challenging that ingrained racial hierarchy. In a small town like Maycomb, that doesn't just ruffle feathers, it puts him and his children at considerable risk, socially and even physically.
He's fighting the town's whole belief system almost.
In a very real way, yes. It's not an abstract legal battle. It's personal, it's local, and the stakes are incredibly high for the Finch family.
Okay, before we get fully into the trial itself, we need to circle back to that other figure looming in the background, Boo Radley.
Right. Arthur Boo Radley. Introduced mostly through whispers, rumors, scary stories the kids tell each other.
He's the neighborhood boogeyman, essentially.
Pretty much. He's this recluse nobody ever sees, so he becomes a blank slate for everyone's fears and projections. The kids are terrified, but also endlessly fascinated.
And this initial perception is important, isn't it? How they see Boo at the start.
Very. It shows their initial simplistic way of judging the world. Based on hearsay, fear the unknown, they create this whole mythology around him without knowing anything real.
Which sets up that idea you mentioned, the source critique about misplaced fear.
Exactly. It's fascinating, isn't it? The kids, and really the town, focus so much fear and speculation on Boo, this essentially harmless, hidden person
The real danger.
is walking around in plain sight. People like Bob Ewell, filled with hate and resentment. They fear the phantom in the Radley house, but don't recognize the actual menace in their midst.
So Boo becomes the symbol of how society gets its fears wrong, focusing on the misunderstood instead of the truly malicious.
I think that's a major part of it. Learning to see past those superficial fears, past rumor and reputation, is central to Scout and Gems and ultimately the readers' moral education. It connects directly to the trial.
Okay, let's tackle the core conflict then. The trial of Tom Robinson. This is where everything crystallizes.
It really is. Atticus is appointed, not that he sought it out, but appointed to defend Tom Robinson,
The black man.
a black man accused of raping a white woman, Mayella Ewell. In the 1930s South, this is about the most charged, dangerous case imaginable.
Just taking the case is a startment.
A huge one. Atticus knows it's almost certainly unwinnable in court given the time and place, but he also knows defending Tom is the morally right thing to do. It's about principle over pragmatism, justice over social acceptance.
Let's break down the key players here. Tom Robinson, the accused.
A decent man, respected within the black community, but completely vulnerable in this legal system. Falsely accused.
And the accuser, Mayella Ewell.
Mayella, this is complex. She's white, which gives her automatic social power over Tom in that context, even though her family, the Ewells, are at the bottom of the white social ladder. Despised, actually.
But her race still trumps his character.
Absolutely. The sources imply, and Atticus skillfully reveals during the trial, that Mayella is likely a victim herself of her abusive father, Bob Ewell.
And the accusation against Tom is a cover-up.
It seems that way. A desperate, tragic attempt to shift blame and shame away from herself and her father. But in that courtroom, her word, however compromised, carries more weight than Tom's truth simply because of skin color.
And Atticus knows this, but he still mounts a powerful defense. The sources mention clear evidence of innocence.
Devastatingly clear evidence. Atticus establishes that Mayella's injuries were most likely inflicted by someone left-handed.
Okay.
And then he has Tom Robinson stand up, revealing that Tom's left arm is completely useless, mangled in a cotton gin accident years before. He physically could not have caused those specific injuries.
Wow. So the physical evidence points elsewhere.
Directly at Bob Ewell, Miles' father, who Atticus demonstrates is left-handed. The factual evidence is undeniable.
So case closed. Right. Innocence proven.
Logically, yes. Factually, yes. But this is Maycomb. Despite Atticus dismantling the prosecution's case, despite the lack of credible evidence, despite Tom's obvious physical impossibility, the all-white jury convicts him.
Just like that.
Just like that. It's the absolute gut punch of the novel. It lays bare the theme of racial injustice in the starkest possible terms.
The system failed.
Completely. It wasn't about facts or truth or justice. It was about upholding the racial hierarchy. Prejudice trumped evidence. It shows the law, which Atticus respects so deeply, can be twisted into a tool of oppression.
And Scout and Jem witnessed this firsthand in the courtroom.
Yes, they're up in the balcony with the black community watching it all unfold. And seeing that verdict, seeing the blatant injustice, it shatters them, especially Jem.
That's the loss of innocence we talked about.
Right there. They see their father fight brilliantly and honorably for the truth and lose. They see the supposed grown-up world, the world of rules and fairness they believed in, revealed as deeply flawed and hateful. It forces them out of childhood.
It's a brutal lesson in reality.
A very brutal lesson. And it sets the stage for exploring those deeper themes the sources emphasize.
Okay, let's dedicate some real time to those now. This is crucial for understanding the novel's lasting power, starting with that overwhelming theme of racial injustice and prejudice.
The Tom Robinson trial is the centerpiece, obviously. It's the undeniable proof of how deeply embedded prejudice is in Maycomb society, in the whole structure of the American South at that time.
And the verdict basically validates that structure, doesn't it?
It does. It sends a clear message. The system is designed to protect white supremacy. Regardless of truth or individual innocence, it reinforces the power imbalance. For the black community, it's a confirmation of their powerlessness within the legal system. For the children, it's a horrifying revelation.
What's powerful is how Atticus handles it. He loses the case, legally.
Yes, and that loss is important. It forces a distinction between legal justice and moral truth. Atticus upholds moral truth. He defends Tom honorably, exposes the lies, treats Tom with dignity.
But he can't achieve legal justice.
No, because the jury isn't operating on morality or law. They're operating on ingrained prejudice. It's a painful lesson that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't lead to the right outcome, at least not in the eyes of the system. Integrity doesn't always win.
Which connects directly to the kids' experience, the theme of moral growth and loss of innocence.
Absolutely. That trial forces them out of their bubble. They have to confront the reality that the world isn't fair, that adults can be cruel and irrational, and that even their father, who seems almost godlike to them initially,
Can't fix everything.
right, he can model integrity, but he can't magically change the hearts and minds of a prejudiced community. They have to start building their own moral framework, figuring out how to live ethically in a flawed world.
And the guide for that framework comes from Atticus's core philosophy, doesn't it? The theme of empathy and understanding. The sources highlight a specific quote.
Yes, this is arguably the central message of the entire book. Atticus tells Scout, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it."
Such a famous line.
And it's the key that unlocks so much of the novel. It's not just advice, it's a moral imperative. You have to try to see the world through other people's eyes.
How does that apply throughout the story? Obviously to Tom Robinson.
Yes, first and foremost, you have to see past the racist tropes and the accusation to recognize his humanity, his fear, his dignity, his innocence. Society refuses to do that, but Atticus demands it and teaches his children to do it.
But does it apply elsewhere too?
Oh, definitely. Think about Mayella Ewell. Atticus tries to get Scout and the jury to understand her situation too. Trapped, poor, likely abused, desperate. Understanding her doesn't excuse the lie, but it adds a layer of tragedy.
So empathy isn't just for the good characters.
No, it's about understanding the human condition, even in flawed or difficult people. And, crucially, it applies most powerfully, perhaps, to Boo Radley,
Right. From Neighborhood Monster.
to eventually understanding him as a person, a shy, damaged, but ultimately kind human being who has his own story. Scout has to discard the rumors and fears and actually try to see the world from his perspective. That's the final step in her education.
And that challenge, to see from another's point of view, is really the challenge the book poses to you, the reader, isn't it?
Absolutely. Apply that lens everywhere. It combats prejudice at its root.
This brings us to the last major theme the sources identify: courage and integrity. Atticus is the obvious model.
He is, but the novel offers a really nuanced definition of courage. It's not about physical bravery, not primarily.
Atticus actually shoots a rabid dog at one point, which surprises the kids because they didn't know he could even shoot.
Right, but he downplays that kind of physical skill. He wants them to understand a different kind of courage. The sources mention Mrs. Dubose here, and that's a key illustration.
Oh, yes. The mean old lady Jem has to reach it as punishment.
Exactly. She's incredibly unpleasant to them. But Atticus later reveals she was fighting a morphine addiction, determined to die free from it. He tells Jem that she represents true courage.
Why her?
Because, as Atticus defines it, real courage is, quote, knowing you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway, and you see it through no matter what. It's about fighting for something important, even against impossible odds. Moral fortitude.
So it's not about winning, necessarily.
It's about the fight itself, the commitment to principle. Mrs. Dubose fighting her addiction, Atticus taking Tom's case knowing he'll likely lose in court, maybe even Tom Robinson facing the trial with quiet dignity. That's the courage the novel values.
Internal strength.
Integrity.
That's it. Standing up for what's right, especially when it's hard, especially when society disagrees. That moral steadfastness is the real heroism. Atticus might lose the case, but he wins the battle for his own integrity and teaches his children its value.
Okay, so after the trial, the story isn't over. The injustice has consequences, immediate and dangerous consequences. The verdict doesn't bring peace. It emboldens the hatred. Bob Ewell feels validated by the conviction, even though Atticus exposed him on the stand.
He felt humiliated.
Deeply. And his response is vengeance. He directs it at the most vulnerable people connected to Atticus, Scout and Jem. He attacks them.
Which shows that the courtroom injustice spills directly into real-world violence.
Exactly. The hatred isn't contained, it seeks victims. It proves that the community's moral failure has tangible, dangerous results, threatening the very innocence Atticus tried to protect.
But then comes the twist, the resolution. The attack is thwarted.
By the most unexpected person. Just as Bob Ewell attacks the children in the dark.
Boo Radley intervenes.
Boo Radley, the recluse, the monster from the children's games. He stakes out of his house, fights off Bob Ewell, and saves Scout and Jem. Ewell is killed in the struggle.
Wow. The ultimate irony.
Isn't it? The person everyone feared becomes their savior. The one judged and ostracized performs the ultimate act of quiet bravery and protection. It ties everything together perfectly.
The sources frame this as the moment the kids finally get empathy.
Yes. Scout, especially, finally sees Boo not as a scary story, but as a human being, their protector. It crystallizes that lesson about looking past appearances and rumors.
So how did the sources summarize the novel's conclusion and overall message?
They define it as a powerful social commentary, absolutely. But the final takeaway feels very personal. It's about finding your way in a world that is often unjust and prejudiced.
And the key lesson is
That goodness can be found in unexpected places, like Boo Radley. The real monsters might be the respected members of the community, like the jurors, or the openly hateful ones, like Bob Ewell. True goodness, true courage might come from the outcasts.
So the final realization for the children and for us is about redefining bravery and goodness.
I think so. Real bravery is that moral conviction, that quiet integrity Atticus and Mrs. DuBose showed, and the protective instinct Boo showed. It's not about conforming or winning popularity contests. And goodness isn't always obvious or socially sanctioned.
Scout has that moment at the end, right? Standing on Boo's porch.
Yes, a beautiful moment. She finally stands on his porch and looks out at the neighborhood from his perspective, literally seeing things from his point of view. She understands. It completes her journey.
So this deep dive, mapping the setting, the characters, the trial, the themes, it really gives you a framework for appreciating why this novel endures.
Definitely. From Maycomb's oppressive atmosphere to Ton Robinson's tragic fate and the crucial lessons Scout and Jem learned about empathy, courage, and the complex nature of justice.
Which leaves us with that final provocative thought, building on the sources. If the core lesson is empathy, seeing from another's view, and we see the legal system fail Tom Robinson.
Right. Atticus believed in the system, worked within it, but it failed because of prejudice.
But then Boo Radley saves the children, essentially committing an act of violence, killing Ewell, that is morally right and protecting innocence, but legally ambiguous, and Atticus helps cover it up to protect Boo.
Precisely. Sheriff Tate insists Ewell fell on his own knife, protecting Boo from the legal scrutiny he couldn't handle. Atticus, the man of law, agrees to this version of events.
So the question for you, the listener, is this. If the official system of justice fails, and the ultimate act of moral protection happens outside, even against, the letter of the law, what does that truly say about achieving justice in an unjust world?
Does true moral action sometimes require stepping outside the very systems designed, supposedly, to uphold it? Atticus, the lawyer, fails legally. Boo, the outcast, succeeds morally through an act the law might condemn.
It's a complex challenge the novel leaves you with. Is integrity enough, or does effective goodness sometimes demand something else?
That's the thought to wrestle with. Thank you for bringing these sources to us for this exploration of Maycomb's enduring lessons.
We hope this deep dive gave you the clarity and perspective you were looking for.